Okay. Well, this is where it gets a little hazy. So in terms of the term sheet that you guys sent to investors for Fyre Media, you claimed that it was worth $90 million. But they say the company only did about $60,000 in business.
Yeah. So here's where I went wrong. And, I fucked up and there's no way around it. I think it started on a, early fall day in 2016, and setting dates here because the timeline just becomes so ridiculous in terms of, money, talent, festival. It's just really like an insane whirlwind. It's like the first fall weekend in September of 2016. And the last Bahamas Magnesis trip was like the previous like winter or spring. We didn't do them over the summer. And I'm kind of sitting there like, hungover in my bed in my apartment. And I think I'm 24 now, like eating ice cream, like, fuck, I got to get back to the Bahamas. So call the team, call Ja, we assemble a plane, and then we're back in the Bahamas. And one of the guys who came with us was a childhood friend who had nothing to do with my business. And he said, he'd been to, let's say, 10 of the Magnesis shows before. He's like, you should totally do a music festival here for all your Magnesis cardholders. And then like, that's his amazing idea. We can take all of the talent that we're pitching to join the Fyre app, have them come to the Bahamas and do a party on an island. Like, hell yeah. And that's how Fyre Festival started. And in the matter of weeks, that went from an idea to some of the largest talent in the world coming with us to the island every other weekend to kind of create the promotions that the people probably saw.
Okay. And you've done rap shows already, so a festival is not that huge of a leap, at least so you think.
It didn't seem different in my head. Yeah. It's like, sure, we could do 2,000 people in New York City, but I just like, I wasn't smart enough to differentiate like us renting out a venue that's built and does this every day in New York versus building a city, like literally on an island with a population of 5 full-time people. And I couldn't like fathom the difference. Like to me, it's like building a website. Yeah, sure, we can build this website, but like I didn't understand the logistical nightmare that it really was.
Well, Ja Rule had been in the music business for like 30 years.
Yeah.
He understands the difference between throwing a small show and a big festival because he's done both. Did he kind of step in and be like, Billy, this is a cool idea, but Coachella and Lollapalooza is not a 10-man operation?
So I think what 2 things happened that like allowed the ship to enter this absolute perfect storm. One was it kept pulling off like small mini miracles. Like some investor, some festival production company would tell us like, hey, it's not possible because of X, right? And okay, we'd go and solve X. And then not realizing there were still 1,000 more problems that we had to solve. We got so excited that we solved one miracle, which we legitimately did. And it's like, I couldn't zoom out. I didn't have the maturity to zoom out and realize it wasn't possible to solve the rest of these. And 2 is I kept bringing the money in. And, money was the ultimate gasoline to fuel this fire, right? And as it became clear that we needed more and more money to make this happen, I started lying to investors to make what I thought would be easier to raise the capital. I think it ended up actually making it harder, but we can talk more about that. But yeah. I blatantly lied to investors to try to raise more cash to try to keep this fire going and actually make the festival work.
I mean, did you consider partnering with like a Lollapalooza or a Coachella and say, hey, we want to take kind of your experience and we'll split the money with you and that type of thing? Or is it, because trying to do something completely from scratch may seem simple, but there's a reason why these companies have been around for 20 years.
I was 24 and I was abiding by this like Steve Jobs mantra where it's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy, where it's like, F them, like we're doing something cooler. Like they're in a desert, we're on an island that's beautiful. We have the most beautiful women in the world. We have the best artists in the world coming here. Like, fuck this, we got this. And obviously that was super naive and wrong, but that was the mentality and you just couldn't tell me otherwise. And I was dumb, young, and hard-headed.
Okay, so originally the Fyre Festival was supposed to be on a different island.
Correct.
This was Pablo Escobar's old private island?
Yeah, so Pablo Escobar's, main pilot was a guy named Carlos Later. I think he was heavily featured in a movie called Below, that Johnny Depp movie from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And Carlos and Pablo bought this island, or bought half this island of the Bahamas, and basically made it their major runway to pit stop before they get to America from wherever they came from in South America. So the island had a lot of history. And then before them, it was a famous pirate Blackbeard's like main hideaway. So I'm like, this is perfect. Like the most famous pirate ever, the most famous drug dealer ever. Now we do a music festival here. Like what better narrative? And that was kind of like the excitement and impetus of like me being naive, like, oh, pirates are cool. Like, Pablo Escobar's cool. Like, let's do a festival here. Not understanding the nuances that obviously went into all of that history.
But wasn't there an issue with that particular island where Escobar's family didn't want to be associated with it or
So the issue was the current owners who still own it now, it's a wealthy European guy. And he agreed to lease it to us. He agreed for us to have the festival there. And then we ended up dropping this trailer. And I think we had one line in the trailer where it said formerly owned by Pablo Escobar. And then I received a cease and desist in my email the next day where it's like, if you step foot on my island again, you're fucked.
Okay. So that deal was over.
That deal was over.
So now you had to find a different island.
Yes. And I think the best part about all this, and it went totally unreported, is we ended up using another island in that same chain. The island we picked was far more populated. It had 3,000 full-time residents as opposed to literally like 5 on this other island. But we ended up renting the land from a guy named Nigel Bowe, who was Escobar's attorney, and he was still alive, and he was like 95 at the time, and he got the island, not the full island, he got the land gifted to him from Escobar. So ironically, we still ended up on an Escobar piece of property, however, on a much larger island.
Right, but this was not a private island.
It was not a private island, no.
And wasn't there some kind of sideways sort of advertising that made it look like a private island, but it wasn't really a private island?
Yeah, so the plan always was to do it on this private island, and all of our marketing materials, like we blew our marketing budget shooting this great video, shooting this great content, and that was all about this private island. We ended up changing locations twice until we landed on that final piece of property that we just discussed. So yeah, it was not a private island. It was still a fairly small, 3,000 people. It's not a huge population, right? Still a fairly small island, but it was not the initial private island that was advertised.
Right. And the place where you were actually going to do the festival had no electricity, no running water. It was basically just a piece of land.
Yeah, it was a raw,
on the water, essentially.
Two raw areas. One was this beautiful big raw beach, and one was like a different area that was good for a tent city, or so we thought. And that was the game plan.
Okay. So now you have a location.
Yeah.
Or so you think.
We have a location. We have like 45 days now for the festival. So
45 days.
The biggest honest mistake, and there are a lot of dishonest mistakes to the investors, but the biggest honest mistake was we released this trailer in December of 2016, promising the festival for April of 2017. So that gave us 4 months. The day after the trailer came out, we were told our location is a no-go. So we spent another 2 months finding a location. Now that we finally had a location, we had 2 months to build housing for 4,000 people in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, and the trailer, that's where you brought out the models and everything else like that? Who were the models in the initial trailers?
We ended up using, I think 400 people posted the trailer with this orange tile at the exact same time in December of 2016. And it was kind of like one of these moments where we were doing what people told us couldn't be done, where I remember like coming back from that trip and calling like, the head of IMG, who was like a friend of one of my investors. And IMG at the time was like the biggest modeling agency in the country.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, kid, I took this call because I know you're an investor. I'm like, all right, I want Haley Bieber, like this person to come to the island with me like next week. He literally laughs me off the phone. He's like, get lost. So I said, okay. So I kind of called down the chain until like, one of the guys like, you know what, Billy, I fuck with you. Like I'll send, 10 of my like best talent to the island. And then we went down, did a trip with them, and they kind of came back and told like all of New York that was the best 3 days of their life. So I think we did that 2 or 3 more times. And then the president of IMG called me back. He's like, Billy, my entire roster wants to go. Like when's the next trip? So like the matter of 3 weeks of being told to get lost to, having at the time come to the biggest supermodels in the world, like there promoting Fyre Festival.
Okay, so initially it was a more just kind of more unknown girls.
Yeah, we started at a lower,
lower end.
We didn't start with the A-list, talent. Right. You could say, yeah.
But then you guys got the really, famous models. Kendall Jenner, Haley Baldwin. She wasn't Bieber at the time.
Yep.
Emily Ratajkowski. I always mispronounce her name. How do you say her last name?
I don't know either.
Something like that. Bella Hadid. I saw Chanel Iman. And you guys were doing like the mannequin challenge with all the models and Ja Rule. This was back when Ray Shremmerd was, had the Black Beatles song. And How much were you actually paying these girls to just do this promo?
Good question. We paid, I would say, like 15 to 20 of them. And then we had 380, and like the rest of the balance of the 400 total, do it for free in exchange for 2 tickets to the festival. So I think we first, went with your regular agency and like a regular, working model who works for a regular brand, not like a celebrity model. They said like, listen, this trip was awesome, like super professional, but also like we were in paradise for 3 days. And I think there's something magic to being on this island with 30 or 40 people where you're escaping in New York. Like that was an awesome feeling. And they kind of came back and became our best salespeople to the next rung, who kind of sold the next rung. Then once we had like the mainstream stars there, the rest of the world wanted to be involved. So I think like after that mannequin challenge video came out, we had thousands of people saying, hey, like how can we be a part of Fyre? So our strategy pivoted from, instead of paying people, we said, hey, on this one day, we want you to all post this like ambiguous orange tile at exactly the same time. And in exchange for that, we will give you 2 festival tickets. So instead of money, it became festival tickets ultimately.
Okay, but for example, how much did Kendall get paid?
It's public, so I can say it's $250.
$250,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
great ROI in that, by the way. Like,
well, yeah, it's Kendall Jenner.
Yeah,
she's a Kardashian.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge ROI, right? Like the immediate ticket sales that come in from an involvement at the time, right? It was far greater than $250,000.
Okay, and the other girls like Haley and Emily and Bella Hadid and Chanel.
I don't think it's public, so not going to say.
Okay,
but yeah,
fair enough. Was it around the same amount, or
I still don't want to disclose.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not public, yeah, I'm not going to.
Fair enough. But you had like 250 influencers.
Yeah.
So who else were outside the models? Was it all models, or is it?
I think what
social
made
media
the
stars,
orange tile work was everybody, right? Like you're a 25-year-old working at Goldman Sachs in New York City. You pull up your Instagram, your favorite comedian, your favorite NFL player, your favorite model, your favorite music artist. They're all posting this tile at the same time. And you're like, what the hell? Like, how do these people know each other? How are they in the same like stratosphere? And I think that was the real genius behind it, was the confusion as to why all these different people were posting it. So while the models probably ultimately like sold the tickets, it was the combination of them with other like random, stars that really made it go.